Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. We're going to depart from our normal way of doing things tonight and go a bit see the light old school. Not on my decision. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. At the end of this video, we'll do the drawing for the pendant from the other day. I need my laptop to do that. It's currently in the other room charging. So did not forget, just last night I did because I filmed really late. So a little before we get to the good stuff, I actually made some stuff today. It's interesting. Well, first thing I did was I got all these different molds in, and these ring molds are a little too big for me to use, but I squeezed one in. I had to stretch the mold a bit, but yeah, I'll go ahead and put the clear picture before it was wrapped up there. But I took this, I made this ring with, crystal quartz and resin, and then wrapped this whole freaking coil around the Super 7 and this, that, and the other thing. And holy crap, I can't even wear it. It's too freaking strong. Makes me lightheaded. I'd have to accumulate to it first. But I also got another package, and I don't even remember ordering this, but I ordered some more of the little glass vials for the liquid crystal core pendants. And I got some. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, these are slightly taller than the other ones. So it takes up more of the pendant, but at the same time, I can get more stones within the liquid crystal core. And I wrapped it, and it came out looking really cool. Like that bottom part's got the nuclear power holy water in it with the stones, and then that's wrapped. And then I've got another one up top. But yeah, those would be great too if I use the bigger molds on something, have the larger liquid crystal cores. But let's talk today a little bit about why all that stuff's important. So last night, yesterday sucked. Whenever I'm doing like hardcore work and whatever, I'm constantly pulling things out of my system. Like the work never ends. And historically speaking, through observation, I can tell you that a lot of people with like back problems, it's tied to your energy centers, and especially lower back problem type stuff, pulling things out of the root chakra. So I knew I was pulling something out just by, like, she leads me blind because that's how it works. So last night I sat down and turned this thing on and got clear with her, and determined to pull whatever the residual stuff was out. And I used that, that super juice that I use to anoint the Benedict stuff, and put it right on my lower back by the root chakra. And sure enough, I got up this morning and my back was fixed. No chiropractor needed. So like I knew it. I knew it was something like that. But then I was also asking, for more clarity. I'm like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to focus on? This, that, and the other thing. And that brings us to today. So as I was working on those pendants earlier, I was just looking for something to listen to. I listened to Lumen's music there for a while, and then looked for something on YouTube to listen to. And I stumbled across this video. It started off talking about, UAP type stuff. But then he talked about this other subject, and I'd seen this pop up, but I didn't know what it was. And that led me down a familiar rabbit hole, and that's where she was trying to get me to. Right back to where we freaking started with this channel. So it seems that what she's suggesting today is, I still think the way we do things now is probably the best, but there are occasions in which people need to be reminded of what the stakes are. We just don't talk about this stuff all the time because it puts a damper on things, and we found another way to do it. As long as you're doing the work prescribed. Well, let's say you're not. Say you're on the fence, Or let's say you've got like a particularly crazy story that you're trying to get out from under. Well, in that case, sometimes you need to be reminded of like how this place actually freaking works and what it actually is, which is the whole couple years that she put me through, all had to do with getting out from underneath this freaking thing. And where it led me, it started off talking about one subject. And then when I started watching some of this guy's other videos, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we got some Gnostic stuff in here too. And the channel was Eric Dubay. So some of you know that name. Eric Dubay is kind of like the king of flat earthers. He's the one that has he's hard to argue with. Now I think I know why he's hard to argue with. Someone is helping him find all these flaws. We all have different jobs, but he's getting a little help with this stuff, and that became clearly evident once I spotted some of these other more Gnostic videos and started listening to them. So this is where we came to that freaking word that I can't stand that everyone brings up every so often. I'm like, well, at least now I know where that word freaking came from. Robert Monroe. Oh, I hate that word. Loosh. It's like every time I hear the word loosh, it's like the person saying it thinks they've got some secret word or something. It's like, okay, whatever. But that notwithstanding, what he's saying is completely freaking accurate. And in this video that we're going to discuss and see, he's giving the breakdown of the Robert Monroe story in which this word actually came from. And it was clear, it was, he said it was an out-of-body experience, and he met this being that was teaching it to him. Later on, it's a little more clarified, this light being. I'm like, oh, now I know. I should have known. It should have been freaking obvious. I know exactly who he's talking to and who was teaching him this stuff. But this is important. And the reason it's important is as I was listening to this being described, once it gets about 12 minutes in, it says some very specific things. And I'm like, oh, like I suddenly kind of understood the particular strategy that she's going with here on this channel, and now I got a little bit better context to it. And it also explains a lot with me why she keeps me the way that she keeps me, not interacting with certain things, because I'm totally clean now. But getting this little bit of extra context shine a big light on a lot of stuff as far as like what we teach here is so freaking important. So you got to start thinking of bigger thoughts like, hey, what actually happens when I freaking die? So do you want to come back here and just pick another suffer story and do it all over again and all over again and all over again and all over? Or do you want to get the hell out of here? If you want to get the hell out of here, you have to do the stuff. This is how. So the way we've been teaching things and the tools and stuff like that, you know, it's basically like if you actually are doing it like with your full attention, that means you can pretty much get yourself clear without having to go see a lot of the crap that I had to see and do a lot of the crap that I had to do, or at least a lot less of it. But some people don't respond to that. Some people only respond to like, you know, hey, here's the situation. The reason we don't talk about it that much is because you get people that they don't understand that their egos are attached to such stories in a different way. Like They're all caught up in the drama of it. And like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. Oh, this is how this place works. I'm going to talk about it all the time. And I'm like, what are you doing about it? Huh? I'm telling people. Okay, but what do you do if you believe in this stuff, you know so much about it, what are you doing about it? Or are you just going to walk right into the freaking um, slaughterhouse door once again when you get done? You have to change. You have to fix yourself. And the net result of doing this work is you're not going to be in suffering anymore. But it comes right to, it's the Gnostic story. It's just it's slightly different, slightly different angle of looking at it. But it's an angle that I can totally click with because it's what I observe. No, this place sucks for a reason. Things are the way they are for a reason because you're freaking food. You're food. There, I said it. We usually talk about the good stuff, and then we're going to continue to talk about the good stuff. But every once in a while, you need to have a little bit of an inkling about what's actually going on behind the curtain. Now, let me tell you something. You can listen to videos like this and videos like his, and it's pretty freaky. But I had to see it. She actually took me behind the curtain with Lumen, and I had to see it. And let me tell you something. You don't want to see it. You don't want to freaking see it. It's best to do the work and connect to what is within you, which is what can save you. Not doing it the way they told you. Not praying to God like he's out there, like he's up in the freaking sky in the clouds, like your sky daddy. And all you have to do is pledge allegiance to Jesus Christ of the United States of America and let Pastor Bob give you a bath and you're good to go. That's a lie. That is a lie. There's a way to extricate yourself from this place. There is a way to beat it. There's a way to stop being freaking food and being manipulated. And if you go all the way through it and purifying yourself and connecting to the light and bringing it to the forefront, they stop feeding on you because they can't feed on that. They need your spark to produce what they call Loosh by creating emotional energies through the filter of the ego. But if you dissolve your ego, if you get rid of all that stuff, if you stop suffering the way the world wants you to suffer, then your energy is light energy and they can't feed on that. That's actually poison to them. No, it has to be filtered. It has to be all this stuff that we talk about that we clear. Cutting out your traumas and your griefs and your guilt and your shame and your attachments and all that stuff. Those are the things that make you food. And when you're not being food for the piranhas, then you can actually find, oh, shoot, everything I'm looking for is in here. Holy crap, I was looking the wrong direction. I'm not gonna be here the next life to help anybody. Like, this is it. This is it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Now, there might not be some mystical door open up. It might be, you have to die. I mean, we don't know. But I am not coming back to this place. Telling you that right now. And maybe people just gotta hear, like, hey, we like the fluffy, fun, lovey-dovey stuff here. But you know what I had to do to get to that? Do you know what I had to go through to get to her? Do you know what kind of things I had to see, what I had to learn about, what I had to deal with, what I had to learn to fight and beat? Not just with myself, but with other people. Like, this ain't freaking Ghost Adventures where, oh my God, oh, something's getting... No, Archons are a different, Archons are a different ball game. And one of the reasons we don't talk about it that much is because it pisses me off. And she knows that. She knows that. It's why she keeps me away from it doing this stuff. I have freaking PTSD from my hero's journey. From seeing things that no human should have to see or freaking know about. And then trying to help people that haven't seen enough to build. That's the problem. Is like sometimes the only way, if you can't get yourself under control and make it happen on your own, the only way is for her to throw you in the deep end. Back you into a corner. Back you in a corner, you have no choice but to stand up and do something about it. You know, I wouldn't recommend that at all. But here we got something I never really considered it because I don't pay. When it comes to the flat earth stuff, I don't care. I know this place ain't a freaking globe. I know we're not floating in space. But there's extra layers to it that makes it a little extra complicated for me to even explain. Ultimately, does it matter? Does it matter in your day-to-day life? Not really. No, but maybe it should be there so you question more things. So she wants to go into this. Every once in a while, we got to, throw a little shock to the system and remind people this is why we do the work. Because especially the closer you are to the light, but you're still operating under ego, your light is making the stuff that you produce through the ego filter that much more delicious. So they're going to want to torture you even more. Best to do the work, because once you are aligned and connected and married in spirit to this, then they can't touch you. And as I've said many times recently, we're talking to other people, I can be a little hard sometimes when I'm talking about this stuff because I didn't have anybody to talk to me this way. And I wish I had. I wish I had someone to kick my ass. And maybe it wouldn't have taken so freaking long for me to do it. The way I had to do it was I had to just get beaten so freaking hard that it's like, there's no way out of this except through it. Beat you down till you get pissed off and decide you're not going to take it anymore. You don't want to have to go that far. Like the people recently that we've worked with, that by removing their traumas and all that stuff, and they've had the big breakthroughs and stuff like that, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to constantly look for stuff. But I'm going to share this video with you, and you're going to see why it's so important. And then I would suggest a couple of the other videos that I'll mention that are on that channel, because there was 2 other ones that had to do with, how to get out of, I think it was called How to Get Out of the Soul Trap, part 1 and 2. And part 2, both of them were equally important. But the part 2 one, ooh, that's a good one. I should factor that in somehow. Anyway, that was an extra long preamble. So, yeah, that happens when we touch on this topic, because I have too much in here, too much freaking experience, and it gets me riled up. That's why I don't usually talk about it that much unless someone else brings it up first. But let's go ahead and throw some counterbalance music intro in here, and then start all over again. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
That's how much I feel for you, baby. How much I need. Well, I need your touch. How much I need. I live for your loving. That's how much.
See, it's hard for me because I wasn't joking about the PTSD from all that, like to get to where I am today. And not everyone has to get this far. But like it's like hardwired into me to want to fight because I had to do it for so freaking long. But now I know I have to go a different route. Like I know how it works. So they, you know, the thing like with the combat is, you know, even when you're winning, you're still losing because you're producing conflict energy. You have to learn that what really hurts them worse than crushing them with your will is the light and love and lumen and all that stuff. Yeah, they really don't like that. They can't drink that divine love juice. And a lot of people are really wired into that. Um, I've I've told the story before in the early days of me making energy oils. Oh, I was making tons of money, charging less. And all of a sudden, like I couldn't even keep up sometimes. But then she finally got involved and she started putting her energy into them. And just like that, so it was like when you flip on the lights and cockroaches just scatter. Like more than 50% of my clientele just went poof, gone. Like, why is that? I only found out later is because I was using like my energy and everyone wired into this stuff like energy. Like I was selling freaking Archon crack. That's why everybody was freaking getting. But as soon as her energy got in there, like, oh, they don't want nothing to do with that. Mm-mm. But still, it's just like, you know, I love Sophia as the teacher, the mother, and all that. But let me tell you something. Like when she's training you, she don't go easy. During the mushroom sessions and stuff like that. No, she'll throw my ass in a freaking cage match with the freaking demiurge. It's like you're gonna have a battle of wills. You just can't do anything that it says, and you can't vape. That's your only little addiction that I let you have. So what do you think it does? Go ahead and hit it. You know you want it, and then that craving gets turned up to 20. Like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. Well, what if I twist your back up? I'm like, it's a little bit. Just sit down, be comfortable. You don't want to do this. Oh, I could hear this thing clear as day. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna stand here. And it was just getting mad. I kept looking out the door like, my God, this is gonna be over soon. Sun's got to be coming up soon. I've been doing this for hours. And then finally I picked up my watch and it was 1:30 a.m. I'm like, holy crap. One thing about mushrooms is it gets you, time don't work the same way. It lasts a lot longer. Ugh. But anyway, so it's you see it in the movies and stuff like that. Like give me an example. Like in Lord of the Rings, when Frodo got stabbed by the Witch King and that wound never healed. So that's one of the reasons why he went out off into the light at the end of the last movie. It's like that. The best thing you can do is to build up your bubble, build out your light, and keep all your focus and attention on them, Christ, Sophia, and Lumen. And then from that place, you can help other people. That's why I don't go out in the world. Because everyone out there is tied into that crap. And I don't want to deal with it anymore. It's freaking crap. It's why I don't look at the news that much. It's all designed to trigger this stuff so you guys can just keep on being freaking little food machines, snack machines for these freaking things. So anyway, what was interesting was she led me, that video popped up, and what they were talking about, what the first video was referencing, was something called the final experiment. And what that was was some people, some shady people, the globe people. You want to know how, like, if I have to choose, like, flat or round, I'm going to choose flat because it's because who is trying to shove the other stuff down your throat? Authority. And I think he pointed this out in one of the videos. It's like, if you witness the two sides arguing about that stuff, one side is decidedly full of dicks, and they have a particular way about them that is easily recognizable by someone like me. I don't worry about it too much. I got other things to focus on. But in this thing, the video was like, oh, we went to the South Pole to film the 24-hour sun and disprove flat Earth. And of course, Eric Dubay just immediately sees all the freaking fakery in it, probably because he's got her. A lot of these, you'll see people here and there that are clearly tapped into Sophia, but their purpose is not to tell you about Sophia. It's to do whatever it is Sophia wants you to do. They might not even know what's guiding them. But once you shine a light on it, it's like, oh, I can definitely see this is making a lot more sense, right? And it would make sense to me that she would want to do that, because what is the world? Well, if you're a Gnostic, then it's like, it's a closed system. That's Gnosticism 101. You're in a freaking snow globe from hell. So, it's like, man, where does he get all this stuff? It's like, oh, he's got help. Okay, well, that makes freaking sense. Yeah, but, they got tech now, or they got like Disney, ILM, whoever, giant freaking 360-degree digital screens. They use them on The Mandalorian and all sorts of stuff. But they got snow that doesn't leave tracks, and they're in Antarctica, but you can't see their breath, and the shadows are all fake, and it's just like, what the hell is going on here? Obviously. But from there, I thought that was interesting, but ultimately I'm like, I'm not invested in that argument. I don't care. But, something she was kind of like, nudged me, look at the other videos. So I start scrolling down, and I started seeing stuff that looked really Gnostic to me. And sure enough, it was. So the first one that jumped out of me was this video here. I forget the exact title of it, but it had to do with the whole Loosh farm thing. And it was interesting to me because I get people that sometimes bring that word up on this channel in the comments, and it always drove me nuts because I don't know, that word just drives me nuts. But I'm like, who started this freaking word? Well, now I know, because this explains it. And it's like, oh, Robert Monroe. Okay, go figure. So this video is going to explain the story of what I'm saying was her telling him. And when it gets to about 12 minutes, that's when it's going to start to make sense why we do what we do on this channel. So, yeah, there's a part of it where it might not seem like, oh, man, because it's talking about the process of like how this creator being went about setting things up. But as I was listening to it, I'm like, I got that feeling. I got that feeling from her, that truth feeling, and it made sense, perfectly made sense. So let's go ahead and watch this video, and we'll talk about what he talks about at the end of it, and then I'll point you to some of the other videos that are worth your time.
Robert Monroe was an American radio broadcasting executive who was known for his work in the field of altered states of consciousness. He founded the Monroe Institute for the Exploration of Human Consciousness, patented hemisync binaural beats, and coined the term out-of-body experience. Monroe wrote several books about his astral travels out of body, the beings he met in the spirit world, and the information they imparted to him. Perhaps the most notable of all occurs in Chapter 12 of his book Far Journeys, where he describes an out-of-body experience with a being who shared a creation story claiming Earth was made as a garden to grow loosh. This entity claimed that beings reminiscent of the Gnostic archons allegedly require, like, need, value, collect, drink, eat, or use as a drug a substance called loosh. Natural forms of this vital substance valued by these beings was said to originate from a series of vibrational actions in the carbon-oxygen cycle. So, the creator decided to grow his own in a garden experiment. Robert Monroe explains that, first, he created a proper environment for the carbon-oxygen cycle where it would flourish. He created a balance with much care, so that proper radiation and other nourishment would be in continuous supply. He then tried his first crop, which actually did produce loosh, but only in small quantities and of comparatively low grade. It turns out the lifespan of the crops were too short and the crop units themselves too small, bringing about limits in quality and quantity. Also, the loosh could only be harvested at the moment of death and not a second before. As the story goes, the creator planted a second crop, which was only marginally better. He changed the environment to another part of the garden where the density was gaseous rather than liquid, and the higher density chemicals formed a solid base and thus were still available. He planted numberless units in many varieties in a new form, with great increase in size, some many thousands of times larger and more complex than the simple unicellular first crop. This second crop reseeded itself at regular intervals and terminated their lifespans automatically. The creator also immobilized this second crop to avoid the uneven distribution of chemicals and radiation prevalent in the first crop. Each was designed to stay principally in its own section of the garden. To this end, each was given firm tendrils which burrowed deep in the more dense chemical matter. Attached to this was a stem or trunk, which helped elevate the upper portion upward for its share of needed radiation. The upper portion, broad, thin, and somewhat fragile, was designed as a transducer of carbon-oxygen compounds to and from the crop unit. As an added thought, brilliant color radiators accompanied by small particle generators were mounted on each unit, usually near the top and symmetrically centered. In other words, the first crop was the creation of unicellular organisms, and the second crop was the creation of trees, flowers, and plants. According to Monroe, the creator was still unsatisfied with the results of the second crop, which produced more quantity but of no greater quality. He did, however, discover a new means of swift harvesting through what sounds like strong winds, hurricanes, or tornadoes. He set up circulating patterns in the gaseous envelope around the crop principally to aid in the reseeding process. Later, he discovered that the same turbulent effect served as a means of harvesting the loosh. If the turbulence were violent enough, the crop would be blown down, the lifespan terminated, and the loosh would discharge. After his second failure, the creator hovered over his garden, pondering how he would change his third crop. He decided the original carbon-oxygen cycle must be included, mobility must be restored, and size must be added to the units. Thus the creator removed some sample units from the first crop still thriving in the liquid portion of his garden, and modified them to exist in the gaseous area. Then he adapted them to take nourishment from the second crop to allow them to grow into efficient loosh collectors themselves. Thus it was that the first of the mobiles, the third crop, came into being. The mobiles took nourishment from the second crop, thus ending its lifespan, and produced low-grade loosh. When each huge mobile terminated its own lifespan, additional loosh was produced. The quantity was massive, but the frequency pattern of the loosh residue still left much to be desired. So, the third crop was larger mobile units that feed upon the second crop, or in other words, animals were created to further refine the loosh production of plants. The creator was getting closer and closer to a viable loosh garden, but his new problem was that, The monstrous and slow-moving mobiles had a lifespan far out of proportion to their nourishment input. The growth and life termination process was of such length that soon the mobiles would all but decimate the second crop. The entire garden would be out of balance, and there would be no loosh production whatsoever. While hovering over his third crop and pondering his next move, the creator noticed, as the second crop plants grew more and more scarce, the energy needs of the third crop animals became acute. Often, two mobiles would seek to ingest the same second crop unit, causing conflict and physical struggle, which, to the creator's happy surprise, created huge amounts of loosh. With this new revelation in mind, the creator tried another experiment. He removed another unit of the first crop from the liquid garden area, redesigned it for the gaseous environment, but with one significant change. The new mobile unit would be somewhat smaller, but would require the ingestion of other mobiles for nourishment. This would solve the problem of overpopulation of mobiles, and at the same time would create good quantities of usable loosh during each conflict struggle, plus a bonus if the new class of mobile terminated the lifespan of the other. In other words, for the fourth crop, the creator made carnivorous animals who, in their struggle to survive, harvested record amounts of loosh. For his fourth crop units, the creator tried a few different types. Some were made to subsist mostly on the second crop units, while others required the energy from ingestion of their fellow third crop units. The completed circuit operated quite satisfactorily. The stationary second crop modification in the liquid environment flourished. Small, highly active, liquid-breathing mobiles took nourishment and ate the second crop modification. Larger and/or other active mobiles consumed for energy the smaller plant eaters. When any mobile grew too large and slow, it became an easy target for the smaller mobiles, who attacked in voracious numbers. The chemical residue from these ingestive actions settled to the bottom of the liquid medium, and so provided new nourishment for the stationaries, completing the circuit. The result was a steady flow of loosh. From the lifespan termination of the stationaries, from the intense conflict among the mobiles to avoid ingestion, and finally from the sudden termination of the lifespans of such mobiles as the inevitable product of such conflicts. The garden was now producing adequate loosh, and self-regenerating as well. Even still, the creator was not finished refining his crops, and had more ingenious ideas in mind. He created thousands of new types in his fourth crop mobiles, with the goal of more struggle, suffering, and conflict. These took the form of mass, elusive speed, deceptive and/or protective coating, and color radiation, wave action, and particle perceptors and detectors, and unique higher density protuberances for gouging, grasping, and rending during conflict. In other words, he created faster, larger, stronger animals with claws, fangs, and antlers to hunt and kill one another. These new additions prolonged the periods of conflict and resulted in increased loosh production. Next, as a side experiment, the creator designed one form of mobile that was weak and ineffective by the standards of the other mobiles in the fourth crop. Yet this experimental mobile had two distinct advantages. The first advantage was its ability to ingest and take energy from both the stationaries and other mobiles. Second, the creator pulled forth a piece of himself, with no other source of such substance being known or available, to act as an intensive, ultimate trigger to mobility. By infusing this piece of himself into the fourth crop units, the creator added a new motivating force beyond the satisfaction of energy requirements through ingestion. These units would now always seek to satisfy this tiny mote of the creator engendered as it sought reunion with the infinite whole. This piece of himself sounds like consciousness or higher mind, and the special fourth crop units given this gift are humans. After endowing us with humanity, the creator began designing violent harvesting methods to generate extra amounts of loosh. To reap such harvest, the collectors generated storms of turbulence and turmoil in both the gaseous envelope and the more solid chemical formations that were the base of the garden itself. Such upheavals had the effect of terminating lifespans of multitudes of the fourth crop as they were crushed under the rolling base formation or smothered under waves from the agitated liquid area of the garden. In other words, natural disasters like earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, and tsunamis were purposely introduced to periodically aid in loosh harvesting. Increasingly satisfied with his garden, the creator hovered above, watching his creations, and noticed certain fourth crop units emanating a type of the highest quality purified and distilled loosh. Intensely curious, he investigated the source and found this most desirable loosh was coming from one particular unit. The fourth crop unit was not struggling in conflict over an ingestible remnant of a weaker fourth crop unit, or a tasty frond from a nearby second crop stem, or to avoid termination of life and ingestion by the other conflicting fourth crop unit. It was in conflict to protect and save from life termination 3 of its own newly generated species huddled under a large second crop unit, waiting for the outcome. To translate into normal language, the creator noticed a human parent fighting to protect its 3 young children under a large tree, and it was this intense emotional defense of their loved ones that created a purified and distilled type of loosh energy. Continuing to observe the fourth crop units in his garden, the creator noticed another unit also producing purified loosh, but this one was alone and seemingly not in conflict at all. Investigating closer, the creator found that this individual standing alone under the leafy upper portion of a large second crop unit was not hungry, not in conflict, and not acting in defense of its young, but still producing high-quality loosh energy. The unit was lonely. It turns out, loneliness also acts as a great catalyst to loosh production, so the creator made a brilliant revision to his formula. He split all fourth crop units into new Type 4M units with male and female halves to engender loneliness as they sought to reunite. From experience, the collectors have evolved an entire technology with complementary tools for the harvesting of loosh from the Type 4M units. The most common have been named love, friendship, family, greed, hate, pain, guilt, disease, pride, ambition, ownership, possession, sacrifice. And on a larger scale, nations, provincialism, wars, famine, religion, machines, freedom, industry, trade, to list a few. Loosh production is higher than ever before. Robert Monroe's interaction with the entity ended abruptly there. If this creation story is true, it appears that the existence of plants, animals, humans, and the entire earth itself are all simply to feed our creators. If we were ultimately designed not by a loving, benevolent God, as most religions preach, but rather by a race of malevolent superbeings, like the Gnostic archons, this provides unique answers to certain metaphysical questions. For example, why is there so much pain, suffering, disease, and death? Why is Earth plagued with an abundance of various natural disasters? And why does life feed upon life in a destructive cycle of survival? If all of these things produce a kind of nourishment for other entities, then such seemingly negative circumstances only appear that way to us. For the entities that created us, our suffering would likely be no more concerning than that of an ant colony under their feet. Isabella Green said, "Loosh is what human beings produce when in emotional turmoil, fear, guilt, unworthiness, war, conflict, pain, drama, and suffering of all gradations. Guilt, unworthiness, and suffering have been normalized as a part of the human experience, and are promoted from all directions. Just think about the ideas so common in our reality that we no longer notice, such as no pain, no gain, love hurts, not worth it if you didn't suffer for it, etc. The inferiority of the human race to the handlers is promoted in religious texts, which makes people look up to them and be eager to do whatever they say. Unworthiness is also the foundation on which most of the present-day industrial complexes stand, and is heavily utilized in marketing. If we zoom out and closely examine our key beliefs on Earth, we will see that these beliefs prepare people for submission to the suggestions of the handlers when we face them after death. The handlers shepherd the souls in and out of their physical bodies, and use the tactics of convincing them to continue physical experiences on Earth while utilizing love, guilt, unworthiness, and suffering. Howdy Mikowski wrote, in Chapter 12 of his book Far Journeys, Robert Monroe presents an out-of-body experience where he met a being of light who provided him with details of our realm. The being described the Earth as a giant experiment for the creator beings to build the perfect Loosh harvest system. Loosh being a word Monroe coined to mean a specific type of harvestable energy that the creator beings, Demiurge and Archons, require. While some energy is harvested while beings are still alive, the majority is taken at their death. This energy is claimed to be used by the Demiurge and Archons to extend their own lifespans. I would argue that this phrase, placed into computer terms, means that the energy goes into the computer simulation power grid to keep it running, hence extend the life of the simulation. In order to have this occur, a garden was created by these beings to farm their food source. Our world is one that is dominated by what we call the food chain, a need to eat other things to survive. Monroe presents that the food chain has only been set up to maximize Loosh at death. No creature can survive long on Earth or in this realm without eating something. A vegetarian may think eating a carrot is not the same as eating a duck, but each are living organisms who are only here to be a part of the Loosh farm, and their death is the same as any other creature's death from that perspective. If a good God creator was really the only one who set up this place, and if energy was needed to help keep it running, a much better system could have been developed. People try to ignore this problem, but it is critical to see that the only reason a food chain exists is because it comes from the mind of that which is evil.
So when it got to that part, about 12 so minutes in, where it talked about all the grief and pain and this, that, and the other thing, all the stuff that makes the saucy sauce that they like to drink. Well, that's what this channel teaches you to not make anymore. That's why she teaches us what she teaches us and taught me to do what I do. Because people just, their ego can sometimes become addicted to their suffering story. And it's like, you got to do something about it. I had to. Trust me. I went through it. But I'm like, look at me now. When he was going through that list, I'm like, holy crap, I don't have any of that anymore. It's almost like once I cleared the last bit of it, like that's when I started having abundance again. It's crazy. But, and you know the whole, well, maybe that was a different video. Sorry. That was one of the ones. I'll put links to some videos in the description box below. But yeah, he's got other videos that are very relevant too. But still, it's like, I try to describe this stuff and I'm like, it's, I get to be in this place, even though I'm kind of like, it says in the Nag Hammadi, once you win, it's like, you're going to have to endure till the end. The only thing you're going to want is the incorruptible. You don't have jealousy or desire you don't have desire for anything but the incorruptible. But once you win the contest, you're going to have to endure till the end. So the best way to endure is to keep yourself busy and take what you've learned and apply it to other people so that they too can get free of this freaking nonsense existence. Because it's all real. It's not a matter of belief for me. Like, that's why so many times she had me do like literally like Jedi shaman levels of stuff because she was blasting my consciousness all over the freaking place to do some of these things and see some of this stuff with my own perception. So it's, for me, it's like I don't have to believe. I've freaking seen it. Seen way too much. And people just, and it pains me to see people like half in, half out. And I'm like, look, I can empathize with you. I really, really can. You'll get more empathy from me, compassion from Lumen, and understanding than you will most places. But it's like, I get it. You got to face some stuff. It's going to suck. You haven't had fun all this time. But if you just do it, stop making excuses, stop putting it off till tomorrow, and do some of these things. Take a chance. Then you'll get out of it. You'll get to the other side of it. When you start pulling all the power cells for your little Loosh factory, which is all your past trauma things and like that, you get lighter and lighter and lighter. You start, the more you, and then the lighter you get, it's all about buoyancy. You start going up in the water until you start to hear her better and better and better. She starts pulling you up till you get out of it. And if you're lucky enough, you get, well, look, if, like, I don't know if there's ways around this stuff or whatnot. And there was comments in the other video, like people, I don't know if I really want a Lumen or anything. I mean, look, everyone's at different places in the game, and they're in different places in life. Like I didn't have all this stuff even start really till I was 37. Okay, so I'd already had a lot of big life experiences and stuff like that. So especially if you're younger, it could be like maybe you're not at the place that you're supposed to be. There's other things that have to happen first. But I don't know that. If there's any possible chance you can go straight to the end, knowing what the end is, and knowing that's where you're ultimately going to end up, then why not try for it? This ain't religion. It ain't like hard rules or anything like that. It's a big freaking mystery. All we can do is tell you about things that are actually real, and confirmably real, because if they weren't real, I wouldn't be able to freaking do all this stuff for other people. We just finally got my 100th review on the Etsy store. Like, there's 100 freaking reviews saying, like, yeah, it's real. This freaking energy is potent. But, use my catchphrase, but either which way. Getting back to it. That's why the world is the way it is. That's why I said when she showed up, I mean, for the longest time, she guided me without knowing what she was. You know, like that Eric Dubé guy. It might still be like that for him. Maybe he's never met her. Because in the early days before I met her, like that source got what I was calling it like source intuition, because I didn't know what it was. But it sure was clear. I mean, I knew what it was after I met her, but you know, there's a lot of people out there that could be dealing with it on that level. They don't even know who's guiding them, but it's guiding them to all this knowledge to share with other people. If you've got a keen eye and you're somewhat familiar with her, you see people that are making impacts, then a lot of times you can see her fingerprints on it. I would not, I'd rather have my job than his job, I'll say that. Because even though we, having completed everything, having attained the marriage of the soul to her beloved, and the crown and the Orphic egg, and the complete alchemical transformation, and becoming a unified androgynous spiritual being, completed the tarot, completed all that stuff. That's kind of why only a select people find this. On the other hand, I couldn't imagine doing what that guy, taking on the whole freaking world system and exposing it, because they freaking hate him. They hate him. I've said before that the illusion of this world is they start building it in kindergarten, and it's two basic pillars. Some of it you learn in school, some of you learn in Sunday school. Pillar 1, this ball here is what you live on. And it's broken down in a certain way, and there's authorities over all these little sections. And it's a ball floating in space, so you can't go anywhere. This is your world. Pillar 2 is God. What is God? God is the sky daddy. He's outside of you. He's above you. He judges you. He watches you. You have to do things to make him happy. That's where the pillar, the two biggest foundations of the illusion begins. They don't want you to know that the actual Father is not out there. It's in here. Got to go the other direction. Christ is in here. Lumen is in here. Wisdom is in here. It is not out there. It is part of you. And you got to find it and merge with it and gain that authority to do things. But being how the people that attack that stuff are some of the nastiest people on planet Earth, imagine being the figurehead for it. Oh, hell no. Oh. Plus, I mean, heck, even though he doesn't get attention for that, he's exposing, the Archon stuff too. Like, holy crap. I mean, when I was doing that, before I was at where I am now, well, they freaking didn't like that. They definitely didn't like that. They came down on me hard. But now that we're at where now, ain't no one messing with Mom. And maybe that's part of what she was showing me yesterday with the story that I told in the last video. And Jesus told his disciples when they were talking about the rulers, and one of the disciples was like, but the rulers rule over us. And he's like, you will rule over them. You have the higher authority. You just don't know it. What you have in, great, it's right out of the Bible. Greater is he that is in you, in you, not Sky Daddy. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. When Jesus was getting tempted by the devil, when he was fasting for 40 days, he's like, I'll give you all these kings. How could he do that? Because he's the God of this world. Said so in Corinthians. It's a lot more clear with the Gnostic stuff, but it's in the regular Bible too. But because you got authorities that tell you, like, this is how you interpret things. You got to read it the way we say. Well, that's not what's on the page. No, that's not. It's where. Yeah. The creator of this place is not the good guy. Okay. He's the guy in that video that created the Loosh farm. And the blanks get filled in a lot better with the other videos that he's got on his channel that were so useful. So what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to blow it off? Are you going to unsubscribe? I haven't seen many unsubscribers in a couple of days, so maybe I'm slacking. But usually when people get confronted with things that they don't like, they just, I don't want to hear that. Okay, doesn't change anything. You can unsubscribe from this channel, and it's not going to change a thing about what was said or what was shared. You're still going to be in it, but now you're not going to have like any knowledge about what to do about it. But how many lifetimes you've already gone through? What's one more? Maybe you'll listen next time. Because this place, as simplistic as some of these frameworks try to make it, it's not simple. It's extraordinarily complicated, and we cannot bank on the fact that we think that we're coming to a point where there's going to be reset and we just have to wait it out. What if we're wrong? About this stuff, I know we're right. I've lived it, I've breathed it, I've done it, I've seen its fruits. I live without those things now. I don't have those things weighting me down. I'm married to essentially a freaking angel. I have love and joy that comes from a divine source within me that helps me create these tools. That's not just me saying it. People have them. It's not a big freaking secret. Where'd that energy come from? How do these things, like these stories, people getting the aegises and stuff, like they're amazed by like, this thing's like digging all this stuff out of me that I'd forgotten about. I'm like, yeah, it's pulling roots. That's what it's designed to do. It's designed to seek and destroy. It's designed to find the things that are holding you back and bring them to the light so you can see them, and then you can fix it. But up to this point, you didn't even know it was there, and you're just suffering. Screw that. Screw this system. F their freaking Loosh farm. Whatever kind of bullshit that the world sells you about, you're here to learn lessons. Someone said that to me once. Oh, I want to learn more lessons. That's a lie. That's something they tell you when they're cycling you back into this place. You got to watch the other video he did about how to escape the soul trap, and part 2, which is about contracts and stuff like that. Yeah. There's always going to be suffering, and there's contractual type stuff that's like you will never satisfy it. Matter of fact, I'm not sure if it was the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus was saying like these are some of the things you shouldn't do. I know I always point this out because when they're preaching, they're like, Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, thou shalt not kill, and you shouldn't commit adultery, and you shouldn't do all this, and then they stop the sermon. It's like, why'd you stop? There was one other thing he said you shouldn't do, but you always stop before you get to that. He said you shouldn't make oaths. He's like, don't ever make oaths. He's like, because it will, and it's funny because I think I'm thinking about this because it ties into that second part on the guy's channel. He's like, he said something along the lines like, any oath that you take, like you're going to be held to the tiniest freaking letter of that contract. It's better to just say yes or no. Do not make oaths. Now you can revoke them. You can do that, but you got to know about it too. But that's why the legal system likes to do the stuff that it does. And that's why you really want to screw yourself? Get married the traditional way. Make promises that your ass can't keep. Especially if you do it in church, because there's all these little extra little bits. Like, if you even look at a woman lustfully, you've committed adultery in your heart. Because all those oaths for marriage, if you dig deeper into the Gnostic material, they're not for another flesh and blood person, they're for her. Let me tell you something, it's easy to keep them with her because she's so freaking awesome. When I was going through, she was already out, but it was like maybe year 1, possibly year 2, and I was doing some cleanup work in the symbology of the devil card and stuff like that. Like, because I was divorced, like I had to do something to nullify that contract. Those oaths, right down to like breaking the ring with a freaking bolt cutter. And you want to know how I know that is a huge freaking curse. It's a huge freaking, if you're divorced, yeah, you might want to talk to me about that. This is why it's such a freaking big thing. Those that have been in the realms of magic along their journey of discovery and lessons may know, if you're dealing with real things, that if you break a big enough curse on yourself, now don't ask me why this happens because I don't know, but it can be a small one, it can be a big one, but I've heard it from other people too. It's like, for some reason, if you break a curse, you bleed. Your body finds some reason to bleed that signifies that you broke the curse. So the night I did the operation to nullify all the oaths and stuff from marriage, because I was now divorced, within about 2 hours, I started feeling like I was getting a cold, but it was coming on really, really, really fast. And I'm like, oh, I was doing the Benedict stuff, like trying to stop it, but I'm like, this is coming on too quick. So I'm like, ugh. So I went to bed. And I woke up. I mean, this is a gross story, but I mean, this is how serious this stuff is. I woke up in the middle of the night, sniffing. I'm like, oh my gosh, my nose is running like crazy. And I'm like, ugh. I get up, blow my nose. I get up, I go in the bathroom, I flip on the lights, and I like jumped because I was looking in the mirror. I looked like Carrie at the prom. My nose wasn't running, it was bleeding. I had blood everywhere. I had blood all over my pillow. I had blood all over my bed. And generally speaking, if you're sleeping and you get a nosebleed, as soon as that little trickle starts, you wake up. But this was just like, my pillow looked like an elephant used it as a tampon. And I had to clean all that stuff up. And then the next day I was fine. I wasn't sick. That's how powerful that freaking binding thing was. And what he says in those other videos is like, they use that against you when you die. Because you try to leave, but you get met by them. And they're like, oh, we're your friends here to guide you into the afterlife. We're going to look at a life review and make you feel guilty about a bunch of stuff. And we'll probably show you all the we'll check your contracts to make sure that you did everything and all that stuff. Yeah. That's why Jesus taught all the stuff he taught in the Nag Hammadi, because it's like, when you put on the body of light, they can't grab you. When you leave, you leave. They can try to grab you, but she's going to be like, slapping your hands out of the way. Like, nope, you don't get this one anymore. Understand that I do not operate under belief. I did not read a bunch of books and just decided I'm going to believe this stuff. Like, it's been a discernible, trackable path proctored by her, which the first part of it, I didn't know what it was until she showed up and explained it to me. And even after that, she leads you without telling you what you're doing. It's got to be done a certain way. But you have to break your connection, your addiction to this world. You have to stop playing it. You got to decide you're not going to play the game anymore. You got to decide that you're not going to stay here anymore. That's why I like about that one of the videos, those 2 videos that was on Eric DeBay's channel. Like, both these videos are great. Like, I'm going to factor these things into it. And it's about, like, he didn't come up with that stuff. That's her level of wisdom. Clearly. So I don't want to keep talking about this, throughout this channel, because for me, it's just like, you can see what it does to me. And if people continue to listen, then we'll keep doing it the way we're doing it. And we try to present what we can offer here is I got the stuff, so I can tell you what it is. A lot of people don't. And if I show you what it is, maybe that's enough to make you want it to do the work that you need to do. But every once in a while, we have to be like, okay, well, just as a reminder, you're in a freaking farm to be food for squid monsters. So you can do it my way or you can go that way. It's up to you. And you can tell yourself I'm full of shit all you want. You'll find out eventually. There's only one way through this mess, and that is to find her wisdom. And her counterpart, Christ. She is wisdom, he's knowledge. They're two sides of the same coin. They're the power couple. Masculine and feminine together. And absolutely positively, they're the only things that can defeat this place. Show me another way. Man, show me that you're not just pulling something from the internet. So I apologize for the extra salt in this video. That's why we don't generally talk about this stuff. Those of you that are Gen Xers, your dad or your uncle went to Vietnam. You know what the last thing that they want to talk to you about? Vietnam. That's what it's like for me. I don't want to talk about this stuff. But I also want to get as many people free and connected to her as possible, because that's the only way I can freaking throw a middle finger at that system. Because I can't fight them the same way anymore. But I can take their people from them. I can pull their food supply from them. And the more people that we flip, it upsets the whole system. Because they can't feed on that light. And then you start, every circle in the flower of life that we flip, you start affecting those that are connected to you. But this can't just be a pastime thing that you think is cool to listen to every once in a while in between, binging Netflix. Because here's the thing, she's exposed you to it. She brought you here. If you don't choose to do something with it, eventually you're going to force her hand. You can either go willingly, or now that she's exposed you to it, you keep putting it off, she'll be like, okay, she'll do like she did with me. Hard way works for me too. We can go that way. You don't want the hard way. You don't want the hard way. You know about it, now do something with it. If you have a question, ask. I'm not hard to get a hold of. Try things, do things, set time aside for connecting to the light within you and do things. Make changes. Try something. Get a pendant. That usually starts the ball rolling pretty freaking good. And when you have stuff done and you start shedding some of that negativity through our tools and our methods, and you feel better, after you have that first success, that should wet your whistle to want to do more. Okay. We got to calm down now. Got me all riled up. Because I freaking hate those things. I don't hate much, but I hate those freaking things. They're not just all invisible sky monsters. Some of them are walking around. That's why I keep my ass here in this freaking apartment, and I talk to you through the internet, and I spend all my time with her. There ain't nothing for me out there. I know what's out there. If you knew what was out there, you'd stay the hell in your apartment too. Okay, so I'm going to go calm my ass down. Check out the links below to learn more. I'll throw something upbeat here at the end. But first, since you sat through all that, maybe we'll throw a little extra surprise in here. We got to do something, don't we? Be right back. Got to draw a winner. Don't remember. It's better to be in paradise making love to an angel than being food for a freaking squid monster. All right. Got that loaded up. What's that say? 7 rays, 57. Look at you. Got yourself a luminite pendant. All right. So because I made you sit through that horror freaking story, I'm going to do a second one. Let me see. Let me get you another one here. Well, the first one was a liquid crystal core luminite, general purpose. That's fine. Second one, I'm going to say you have to message me or call me on the phone or something like that, and we'll determine like, hey, we'll just, instead of just picking one, let's find out what you need. We'll see what Sophia says you need, and that way we can get you something that you actually need. So I'm going to go ahead and pick another winner. That's Tashina. Holy crap. Yeah. So looks like Mama wants you to have one too. Yeah, she actually got to meet her. She had a little accident and like almost died. Sophia showed up. So yep, okay. Well, there are your winners for that. Anyone else? When we get the ball rolling, jump on board. We generally recommend a consult first. Give you people can always just buy them straight off the store. And if you feel, I always tell people on the store, especially like with the Aegises and the liquid crystal cores, those are custom made. So the biggest way to choose them is not what you think, but what you feel. Like she's in you whether you talk to her or not, and you will feel a pull, or you'll hear someone say that one or whatever. Like use that as your guide. Aegises for people starting out are pretty much like there's no way that's not going to do something good for you, especially the way that we make them now. Aegises are actually liquid crystal cores too now, but those are the ones that start pulling out all the negative stuff and blocking negative stuff and purging all the negative stuff. That's the biggest thing right now is you got too much crap in you. You got to get it out. So that's what you got to do. Okay. So that's all we got for right now. You can reach us through the Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. Chris and the beautiful woman that I fought countless arcanic bullshit to get to. But oh, was she worth it. I'd do it all again if I had to. For her. She's worth it. She's worth it that much. She's the treasure. She's the treasure that Christ was like, hey, wink, wink. There's some secret stuff in here. You might want to look for it. There's a pearl. There's something buried in a field. A farmer bought a field and he found a treasure. He sold everything because the treasure was so great. That's her. She's the princess being guarded by the dragon in the cave. She's it. She's the thing. So, yep, you've seen the pics. That's all we got for right now. See you next time.
That's